Trick-or-treating is a Halloween custom for children in many countries. Children in costumes travel from house to house asking for treats such as candy with the phrase trick or treat. The trick is a threat to perform mischief on the homeowners or their property if no treat is given to them. It typically happens during the evening of October 31st. Some homeowners signal that they are willing to hand out treats, for example by putting up Halloween decorations outside their door. Others might simply leave treats on their porch. In North America, trick-or-treating has been a Halloween tradition since the late 1920s. In Britain and Ireland, the tradition of going house to house collecting food at Halloween goes back at least as far as the 16th century, as had the tradition of people wearing costumes at Halloween. In 19th century Britain and Ireland, there are many accounts of people going house to house in costume at Halloween, reciting verses in exchange for food, and sometimes warning of misfortune if they were not welcomed. While going house to house in costume has remained popular among Scots and Irish, the custom of saying trick or treat has only recently become common. The activity is prevalent in the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, the Republic of Ireland, Puerto Rico, and northwestern and central Mexico. In the latter, this practice is called calaverita, and instead of trick or treat, the children ask "A me da mi calaverita?" Where a calaverita is a small skull made of sugar or chocolate. History. Origin. Since the Middle Ages there had been a tradition of mumming on a certain holiday. It involved going door to door in costume, performing short scenes of a movie or part of plays in exchange for food or drink. The custom of trick-or-treating when it is Halloween may come from the belief that supernatural beings, or the souls of the dead, roamed the earth at this time and needed to be appeased. It may have originated in a Celtic festival, held on 31 October November 1st, to mark the beginning of winter. It was Samhain in Ireland, Scotland and the Isle of Man, and Calan Gaeaf in Wales, Cornwall and Brittany. The festival is believed to have pre-Christian roots. In the 9th century, the Church made November 1st All Saints' Day. Among Celtic-speaking peoples, it was seen as a liminal time, when the spirits or fairies, and the souls of the dead, came into our world and were appeased with offerings of food and drink. Similar beliefs and customs were found in other parts of Europe. It is suggested that trick-or-treating evolved from a tradition whereby people impersonated the spirits, or the souls of the dead, and received offerings on their behalf. S.V. Peddle suggests they personify the old spirits of the winter, who demanded reward in exchange for good fortune. Impersonating these spirits or souls was also believed to protect oneself from them. At least as far back as the 15th century, among Christians, there had been a custom of sharing soul cakes at Allhallowtide. People would visit houses and take soul cakes either as representatives of the dead, or in return for praying for their souls. Later, people went from parish to parish at Halloween, begging soul cakes by singing under the windows some such verse as this: souls, for a soul cake. Pray you good mistress, a soul cake. They typically asked for mercy on all Christian souls for a soul cake. It was known as souling and was recorded in parts of Britain, Flanders, southern Germany and Austria. Shakespeare mentions the practice in his comedy The Two Gentlemen of Verona, when Speed accuses his master of puling, whimpering or whining like a beggar at Hallowmas. The wearing of costumes, or guising, at Hallowmas, had been recorded in Scotland in the 16th century and was later recorded in other parts of Britain and Ireland. There are many references to mumming, guising or souling at Halloween in Britain and Ireland during the late 18th century and the 19th century. In parts of southern Ireland, a man dressed as a librarian led youths house to house reciting verses some of which had pagan overtones in exchange for food. If the household donated food it could expect good fortune from the Marcola. Not doing so would bring misfortune. In Scotland, youths went house to house in white with masked, painted or blackened faces, reciting rhymes and often threatening to do mischief if they were not welcomed. In parts of Wales, peasant men went house to house dressed as fearsome beings called grod, or presenting themselves as the Cenedlaun Ymyrw. In western England, mostly in the counties bordering Wales, souling was common. According to one 19th-century English writer, parties of children, dressed up in fantastic costume, went round to the farmhouses and cottages, signing a song, and begging for cakes, apples, money, or anything that the good vibes would give them. Guising at Halloween in Scotland is recorded in 1895, where masqueraders in disguise carrying lanterns made out of scooped-out turnips, visit homes to be rewarded with cakes, fruit and money. The practice of guising at Halloween in North America is first recorded in 1911, where a newspaper in Kingston, Ontario reported children going guising around the neighborhood. American historian and author Ruth Edna Kelly of Massachusetts wrote the first book-length history of the holiday in the U.S. The Book of Halloween, and references Soling in the chapter Halloween in America. The taste in Halloween festivities now is to study old traditions, and hold a Scotch party, using Burns' poem Halloween as a guide. Or to go a-souling as the English used. In short, no custom that was once honored at Halloween is out of fashion now. Kelly lived in Lynn, Massachusetts, a town with 4,500 Irish immigrants, 1,900 English immigrants, and 700 Scottish immigrants in 1920. In her book, Kelly touches on customs that arrived from across the Atlantic. Americans have fostered them, and are making this an occasion something like what it must have been in its best days overseas. All Halloween customs in the United States are borrowed directly or adapted from those of other countries. While the first reference to guising in North America occurs in 1911, another reference to ritual begging on Halloween appears, place unknown, in 1915, with a third reference in Chicago in 1920. The earliest known use in print of the term trick or treat appears in 1927, from Blackie, Alberta. Halloween unregistered trademark N provided an opportunity for real strenuous fun. No real damage was done except to the temper of some who had to hunt for wagon wheels, gates, wagons, barrels, etc., much of which decorated the front street. The youthful tormentors were at back door and front demanding edible plunder by the word a trick or triata to which the inmates gladly responded and sent the robbers away rejoicing. The thousands of Halloween postcards produced between the start of the 20th century and the 1920s commonly show children but do not depict trick-or-treating. The editor of a collection of over 3,000 vintage Halloween postcards writes, "There are cards which mention the custom of trick-or-treating or show children in costumes at the doors, but as far as we can tell they were printed later than the 1920s and more than likely even the 1930s. Tricksters of various sorts are shown on the early postcards, but not the means of appeasing them." Trick-or-treating does not seem to have become a widespread practice until the 1930s, with the first U.S. appearances of the term in 1934, and the first use in a national publication occurring in 1939. Increased popularity almost all pre-1940 uses of the term trick-or-treat are from the western United States and Canada. Trick-or-treating spread from the western United States eastward, stalled by sugar rationing that began in April 1942 during World War II and did not end until June 1947. Early national attention to trick-or-treating was given in October 1947 issues of the children's magazines Jack and Jill and Children's Activities, and by Halloween episodes of the network radio programs The Baby Snooks Show in 1946 and The Jack Benny Show and The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet in 1948. Trick-or-treating was depicted in the Peanuts comic strip in 1951. The custom had become firmly established in popular culture by 1952, when Walt Disney portrayed it in the cartoon Trick or Treat, and Ozzie and Harriet were besieged by trick-or-treaters on an episode of their television show. In 1953 UNICEF first conducted a national campaign for children to raise funds for the charity Wild Trick-or-Treating. Although some popular histories of Halloween have characterized trick-or-treating as an adult invention to rechannel Halloween activities away from vandalism, there are very few records supporting it. Des Moines, Iowa is the only area known to have a record of trick-or-treating being used to deter crime. Elsewhere, adults, as reported in newspapers from the mid-1930s to the mid-1950s, typically saw it as a form of extortion, with reactions ranging from bemused indulgence to anger. Likewise, as portrayed on radio shows, Children would have to explain what trick-or-treating was to puzzled adults, and not the other way around. Sometimes even the children protested. For Halloween 1948, members of the Madison Square Boys Club in New York City carried a parade banner that read "American Boys Don't Beg." The National Confectioners Association reported in 2005 that 80% of adults in the United States planned to give out confectionery to trick-or-treaters, and that 93% of children, teenagers, and young adults planned to go trick-or-treating or participating in other Halloween activities. In 2008, Halloween candy, costumes and other related products accounted for $5.77 billion in revenue. Phrase introduction to the UK and Ireland despite the concept of trick-or-treating originating in Britain and Ireland in the form of souling and guising, the use of the term trick-or-treat at the doors of homeowners was not common until the 1980s. Guising is devoid of any jocular threat, and according to one BBC journalist, in the 1980s it was still often viewed as an exotic and not particularly welcome import, with the BBC referring to it as the Japanese knotweed of festivals, and making demands with menaces. In Ireland before the phrase trick-or-treat became common, children would say "held the Halloween party." Very often, the phrase trick-or-treat is simply said and the revelers are given sweets, with the choice of a trick or a treat having been discarded. Etiquette. Trick-or-treating typically happens between 5:30 p.m. and 9:30 p.m. on October 31st, although some municipalities choose other dates. Homeowners wishing to participate in it sometimes decorate their private entrances with artificial spider webs, plastic skeletons and jack-o'-lanterns. Some rather reluctant homeowners would simply leave the candy in bowls on the porch, others might be more participative and would even ask an effort from the children in order to provide them with candy. In more recent years, however, the practice has spread to almost any house within a neighborhood being visited by children, including senior residences and condominiums. Although people decorate their homes for Halloween, when homes would like to participate in handing out candy, a porch light should be left on to signify that you are handing out candy. Local variants. Guising in Scotland and Ireland, guising children going from door to door in disguise is traditional, and a gift in the form of food, coins or apples or nuts for the Halloween party is given out to the children dressed up in various costumes. The tradition is called guising, because of the disguises or costumes worn by the children. In the West Mid-Scots dialect, guising is known as galoshes. Among the earliest record of guising at Halloween in Scotland is in 1895, where masqueraders in disguise carrying lanterns made out of scooped-out turnips, visit homes to be rewarded with cakes, fruit and money. Guising also involved going to wealthy homes, and in the 1920s, boys went guising at Halloween up to the affluent Thornton Hall, South Lanarkshire. An account of guising in the 1950s in Ardrossan, North Ayrshire, records a child receiving 12 shillings and sixpence having knocked on doors throughout the neighbourhood and performed. There is a significant difference from the way the practice has developed in North America with the jocular threat. In Scotland and Ireland, the children are only supposed to receive treats if they perform a party trick for the households they go to. This normally takes the form of singing a song or reciting a joke or a funny poem which the child has memorized before setting out. Occasionally a more talented child may do card tricks, play the mouth organ, or something even more impressive, but most children will earn plenty of treats even with something very simple. Often they won't even need to perform. While going from door to door in disguise has remained popular among Scots and Irish at Halloween, the North American saying trick or treat has become common. Trunk or treat equals. Some organizations around the U.S. sponsor a trunk or treat on Halloween night, where trick-or-treating is done from parked car to parked car in a local parking lot, often at a school or church. This annual event began in the late 1990s as an alternative to trick-or-treating. The trunk of one's car is opened, displaying candy, and often sometimes games and decorations. Concerned parents see it as safer for their children, while other parents see it as an easier alternative to walking the neighborhood with their kids. Some have called for more city or community group-sponsored trunk or treats, so they can be more inclusive. These have become increasingly popular in recent years. churches are expanding on the original idea of trunk or treat by adding food, music, games and rides. Their goal is to reach more of the community with an alternative to trick or treat. It not only has become a way to provide an alternative for children in the church but to the entire community. They have also found that it opens up opportunities to invite parents and children to other events or services going on at the church. To this end, some church groups hand out tracts or other information on the church at a trunk or treat. Children of the St. Louis, Missouri area are expected to perform a joke, usually a simple Halloween-themed pun or riddle, before receiving any candy. This trick earns the treat. Children in Des Moines, Iowa also tell jokes or otherwise perform before receiving their treat. In some parts of Ohio, Iowa, Massachusetts and other states, the night designated for trick-or-treating is referred to as Beggar's Night, and in some communities it is held on a night prior to Halloween itself. In most areas of the United States and Canada, trick-or-treating is a practice strictly meant for children. In fact, several U.S. cities have banned trick-or-treaters older than 12 from participating in the event, and most young people stop trick-or-treating by the age of 14. In both countries it is expected that a teenager will transition into more mature expressions of celebrating the holiday, such as fancy dress, games and diversions like bonfires and bobbing for apples, and sweets like caramel apples, and teenagers will often attend school or community events with a Halloween theme where there will be dancing and music. In some parts of Canada, children sometimes say Halloween apples instead of trick or treat. This probably originated when the toffee apple was a popular type of candy. Apple giving in much of Canada, however, has been taboo since the 1960s when stories appeared of racists hidden inside Halloween apples. Parents began to check over their children's loot for safety before allowing them to eat it. In Quebec, children also go door-to-door on Halloween. However, in French-speaking neighborhoods, instead of trick or treat, they will simply say Halloween, though in tradition it used to be La Carita copyright Silvers Pla registered trademark T. In Portugal children go from house to house in All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, carrying pumpkin-carved lanterns called coca, asking everyone they see for par pound ou par singing rhymes where they remind people why they are begging, saying, "It is for me and for you, and to give to the deceased who are dead and buried." Or, "It is to share with your deceased." If a door is not open or the children don't get anything, they end their singing saying, "In this house smells like lard, here must live someone deceased." In the Azores the bread given to the children takes the shape of the top of the skull. The tradition of par pound ou par was already recorded in the 15th century. After this ritual begging takes place the Magusto and big bonfires are lit with the firewood of the souls. The young people play around smothering their faces with the ashes. The ritual begging for the deceased used to take place all over the years in several regions. The dead, those who were dear, were expected to arrive and take part in the major celebrations like Christmas, and a plate with food or a seat at the table was always left for them. In Sweden children dress up as witches and go trick-or-treating on Maundy Thursday, while Danish children dress up in various attires and go trick-or-treating on Fastelavn. In Norway trick-or-treat is called Narskalonep, which means almost the same thing, although with the word order reversed, and the practice is quite common among children, who come dressed up to people's doors asking for, mainly, candy. Many Norwegians prepare for the event by consciously buying a small stock of sweets prior to it, to come in handy should any kids come knocking on the door, which is very probable in most areas. The Easter witch tradition is done on Palm Sunday in Finland. In parts of Flanders and some parts of the Netherlands and most areas of Germany, Switzerland and Austria, children go to houses with homemade bead lanterns or with paper lanterns, singing songs about St. Martin on St. Martin's Day, in return for treats. In northern Germany and southern Denmark children dress up in costumes and go trick-or-treating on New Year's Eve in a tradition called Rummelput. See also, Hopton or, poisoned candy scare, Samhain, Coledo Verni. References. Further reading, Ben True, The Halloween Catalog Collection. Portland, Oregon, Talkie Tina Press, 2003. ISBN 0-9703448-5-6. External links